The Cavs are right now, as we're recording this video, 12-0. And a lot of people are wondering, why are the Cavs so much better? I mean, this isn't a team that made a giant move in the offseason to pick up a big name. This isn't a team that traded one of their key players or fixed their roster situation to align better. All this team did from the outside looking in is get Kenny Atkinson. And Kenny Atkinson's a huge part of what's going on with the Cleveland Cavaliers, but he's not the only part of what's going on with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I want to talk about, when I watch this Cavs team, the three things or the three reasons why I think this Cavs team is better this year than they were last year. So I'm going to start with the first thing. This is the most obvious thing to me. Health. They are much healthier to start this year than they were last year. Last year, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, and Donovan Mitchell, who I think we can comfortably call the big three on this team, right? The best three players on the Cavs. Those guys missed 25% or more of their starts last season, all three of them, all at different times. Now, that's a fun number, 25%, because right now the Cavs at 12-0 have 25% of all their wins from last year already in the season. But that was the big part of the disappointment from last year. Even though they got to 48 wins, a lot of injuries. And the thing about injuries is that the games missed doesn't really even cover the main impact of the injuries. You have to consider that when a player comes back from injury, there's usually a significant ramp-up period where they're trying to come back, especially, with Donovan Mitchell. He was playing through injuries, and then he sat out because of injuries, and then he had to play through injuries again. Like, Donovan didn't look like Donovan for like half the season last year. And Darius Garland didn't look like Darius Garland after he had that jaw injury. He lost the 20 pounds. Evan Mobley was in and out the lineup. And I think that is a huge part to why this Cavs team looks so different, is simply because they're all healthy, and not just like available to play healthy, but like actually healthy. They're not working off some kind of injury. They're not playing through some kind of injury. So we're seeing Darius Garland look like Darius Garland, and Donovan Mitchell look like Donovan Mitchell. And Evan Mobley is progressing and looking like a better basketball player, but he's also healthy, and he's playing great defense right now on top of everybody else on the Cavs, right? The Cavs have relatively low injuries. I think Karis LeVert and maybe Ty Jerome are the only two that missed games. Ty Jerome being healthy is making a huge difference. He's a big piece for this team off the bench. The health is, like, I think, number one why this team looks different, because, again, look at all the health issues they had last year. They still were a 48-win basketball team. You would imagine if they were healthy last year, even with JB Bickerstaff, they would have been able to win 50, 55 games. And now it looks like this team's on track to be a 60-win team, right? So there is a jump, but it's not like the jump from 48 to 66. I mean, the 60 wins is more of a jump from 55 to 60. But that's why I think a good chunk of this is happening. The injuries, they're just not here. Knock on wood. They're just not here like they were last year. Another thing about those injuries is that one thing that affected the Cavs most is the shooting of their best players, right? Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland were very inconsistent shooters last year compared to their career averages. Donovan Mitchell obviously had a ton of injuries. His shot kind of relies on how high he can jump. Like if you look at different players and how they shoot and what kind of dictates their success from their jumper form, for Donovan Mitchell, it's lift, right? Like, he needs that lift on his shot to be able to shoot it accurately like he wants to. For Darius Garland, I think it's weight, because when he lost that 20 pounds, he also lost his jumper, right? Like, weight matters. If you look at a lot of studies that people have done about like what affects a jump shot, weight and lift those are the two most important things. And Donovan had his lift affected last year. The jumper wasn't falling. Darius had his weight affected last year. The jumper isn't falling. And it looks like Evan Mobley has gained some weight, some necessary weight gain. And it looks like his jumper hits a lot more consistently. And he's being a lot more aggressive because of it. The health here for those three guys, but the team overall, I think is a massive part of why this Cavs team is able to be on the type of run they are on. Number two, they got that New York Knicks monkey off their back. Let's be honest about it. The way that they got embarrassed in Madison Square Garden on national TV in the 2022 playoffs was an embarrassment in a cloud that basically sat over the Cavs season all last year. It didn't matter if the Cavs did anything impressive. It didn't matter if the Cavs were on a losing streak. It didn't matter if the Cavs were winning a lot of games despite being injured. When I would talk about the Cavs last year, it was nonstop. The New York Knicks are just going to beat us again. We can't beat the Knicks like this. Like, you can tell in the fan base that we couldn't stop talking about that damn Knicks series. You could tell in the locker room that they didn't stop thinking about that New York Knicks series. Like, everybody had that embarrassment on their head. The memes that came out of it, all of that. I think a couple of things happened that made it so that that's less prevalent to everybody. One, the Cavs won a playoff series. They went to 7 games with the Orlando Magic, and they won Game 7. And I think that helped get the monkey off their back, so to speak, of that New York series. I think another thing that helped is that New York team is not that same New York team anymore, right? Isaiah Hartenstein's not there. They don't have Julius Randle. You don't have to be as physical as a beast of a team to beat them anymore. So the anxiety about can we beat New York, will we get out physical by New York, that doesn't exist anymore within the fan base or the team, because that version of the New York Knicks does not exist anymore. So they're fine there. I think getting over that, right? Beating New York early in the season in New York. All of these things have freed the Cavs mentally from worrying about disappointment. Last year was a team that was constantly and consistently concerned about disappointing. This year is a team that's just about performing. They look way more confident coming into the season. Like, have you watched Evan Mobley near the hoop this season? He looks as confident as I've ever seen him, right? The same could be said for Jared Allen around the hoop. I think he looks as confident as I've ever seen him. This is a big part of it. Just not having to think about that New York Knicks playoff disappointment, right? Donovan Mitchell, he showed up in the playoffs last year. Evan Mobley showed up big in the Celtics series last year. And I think the reason that they got eliminated against the Celtics was, one, the Celtics were a better team than them last year. And two, the Cavs got injured. So, like, it's not like the Cavs got embarrassed on their way out of the playoffs last year. It's just the fact that they got injured. A bunch of their star players went out. I think Donovan Mitchell went out at some point. And they lost that series in 5 games in a very respectable effort. There's no embarrassment lingering over their heads right now. And look, I know people don't think that things like that are real in professional sports, but it happens, man. Like, that happens a ton. Like, look at the Clippers. Like, back in the day, the Lob City Clippers. One embarrassment after another embarrassment, and then they let the Rockets come back with Josh Smith. And that was it. That was it for that core once that happens, right? Like, that kind of embarrassment is a hard thing to overcome. And the Cavs had to overcome an embarrassing exit, and it lingered all 2023. Now it doesn't seem like it's there. Maybe getting a new coach is what helped delingerify that embarrassment. But let's talk about the number 3 thing, Kenny Atkinson. Because obviously this is the one move that you've seen the Cavs make this offseason is Kenny Atkinson. This was a tremendous move for a number of reasons. We knew that Kenny Atkinson coming in was going to know how to work with Karis LeVert, was going to know how to work with Jared Allen, right? Because he had worked with those guys in the past. The question was Kenny Atkinson going to be good for Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and all the other pieces? Hindsight being 2020, one of the things that should have gave us a lot of confidence in the offseason was their insistence on the fact that they didn't need to change anything, which suggests that Kenny Atkinson saw this roster and saw an opportunity here to be made. We are seeing right now Darius Garland playing some of the best basketball of his career. Donovan Mitchell continuing to play the best basketball of his career. I think Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland, and I don't think this gets talked about enough, has elevated his game from what he was in Utah. In Utah, he was a fun young player that could be a superstar. He's a legitimate superstar fringe MVP candidate in Cleveland. Every year he's been in Cleveland, it's been the case that at some point we talk about Donovan Mitchell is a fringe MVP candidate. So Donovan Mitchell is continuing to play his best basketball of his career while he's in Cleveland. And Evan Mobley is starting to get there too. And I think Kenny has figured out how to use all of these guys in their unique skill set, right? Because Jared Allen could pass well, so can Evan Mobley. Like when you have the Cavs starting five out there, you have five players that can facilitate and playmake. Donovan Mitchell, I think, is an underrated playmaker. Obviously, Darius Garland is the initial playmaker. Having that be an option kind of reminds you of, and I'm not saying this is the same exact team because they're very different, but it kind of reminds you of those early 2010s Spurs teams that were able to just flawlessly and effortlessly be able to move the ball throughout the court, right? Like that's kind of what this Cavs team can look like at times when they're playing at their peak form, is that they're able to move this ball so effortlessly to find the right guy and get the right shot. And since they have so many guys on the floor who are really good facilitators, it makes that style of play very hard to stop for the opposing team. I think Kenny Atkinson was the right fit. And also the other thing that you see with Kenny Atkinson is that this Cavs team feels like they have a plan offensively. It feels like they have an actual strategy when they play versus other years where it felt like when the Cavs got on offense, it's whatever Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, or Karis LeVert wants to do, and then we'll figure it out from there. Right? The Cavs feel like a organized team with an actual intention right now. And I think that's making a huge, huge difference in how the Cavs are looking so far this season. So if you're looking in, if you have just jumped into the Cavs thing and you're wondering, why is this team better than they were last year? Like, what is making the difference here? I pose three reasons. One, health. Health is a big thing. They're much healthier this year than they were last year. Two, Kenny Atkinson. And three, they finally got that stank of that 2022 playoff loss out of their noses. And you can tell that they've evolved from it, right? Those are the three things I think have aided the Cavs into this 12-0 start. We'll see what this turns into. I'm super excited about it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.